1 p.m. on Monday, October 4th, I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. And knowing that we don't have any action items, I'm just going to turn it over to Angela.
Okay, yes. I wanted to just share draft of the preliminary budget and, just to kind of set the stage for this. To keep in mind where we're looking at time wise is, today we're going to look at the draft. Even from the draft, there have been changes because we finalized enrollment on Friday. So many of the figures for just our general, enrollment that we count, which gets applied to the revenue limit worksheet. And then also our open enrollment in and out figures have a heavy impact. So I worked over the weekend to kind of, show the differences that would impact the budget along with just other proofing of the budget. So I have that information. So today we're going to look at that. We're going to review that. And then I'm going to work with Margot Wagner, to our bookkeeper, like her and I work together on this to make the changes. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, I'll have the final preliminary budget set to provide to the committee. And then on Friday, really our goal is in the meeting is just to, have any final discussion over it, and then just to have an approval of the preliminary budgets, because we need to have those motions going into the budget hearing, and then it's, set for approval by the board on Tuesday. So that's kind of like the overall timeline that I wanted to share with everyone. So just, just for everyone, just to kind of know the process, we have to post the budget hearing notice 2 weeks in advance. So what's part of a challenge with this is that we have many pieces that we're waiting for while we're waiting to, or, even after we post this notice. So the notice is kind of like a moment in time and kind of where we're at. So a couple of things have changed, but I'm going to share my screen and show that budget notice and kind of go over that, because that really goes over the high level view of the full entire budget. So I'm going to bring that on to here. And I'll just ask you guys to help me verify that you can see. I know it's not really clear right now. Actually, let me see here.
It is there.
Yeah, and you all can see this. Okay, so this is the budget hearing notice. It says when the budget hearing will occur. At the top, it talks about your beginning and ending fund balance. And our budget overall is projected to go into fund balance. So you can see that our balance will go down over the course of the year based on the numbers we use for the preliminary budget. The very top part here, the revenues and other financing sources, it talks about just all the various sources in which we get money. And so local sources, one thing I had done a little differently this year with the budget is I separated out the Fund 10 and the Fund 38 revenue that we get in for the levy, so that it's kind of complicated to understand, but Fund 38 is a non-referendum debt, and that's always combined with your Fund 10 levy. And in the past, it's been separated on this document, or it was combined, but I separated it on this document. So our total revenues are $69 million for Fund 10 for the general fund. And then the instructional amounts and the support service amounts and non-program transaction amounts are highlighted out as kind of like overarching totals for each area. You will notice that in all of the areas, except for the function 400,000, that, like the 100,000s and the 200,000s, there is quite a bit of an increase this year between last year's budget and this year. And that's due in part because of the pandemic funding. So, that's, just a lot of what goes into that. So like the HVAC updates, that's $2.5 million or $2 million just in itself. So we've, for Esther 2, have budgeted $2.5 million in expenditures, and for Esther 3 as well. So that is going to have a substantial impact, and that's why you see that increase. So the expenditure budget is $71 million, 623,806. So, and if you guys have questions along the way, just stop. Just feel free to interrupt. Otherwise, moving on to special projects fund. This is a little interesting now because on our board financials monthly, what I do is I separate out the Fund 21 and Fund 27. So Fund 21 is kind of like the fundraisers and the activity accounts, where where Fund 27 is so different, with it being the special education accounts. So just with how the states, the format is for posting the budget here, you notice they're combined here. So the revenues we have here, and it's primarily special education, the budget amounts that you see here. So for Fund 21, we don't depend upon those revenues. So we just include those, or we don't budget anything for revenues for Fund 21, and a very small amount for the expenditures. And then for debt service, this is what's a little interesting here and different for what we're, and this is really good news. So what we're including as a part of our expenditures that we take in and use from our levy is this $1.1 million. And so that's why you're going to see an imbalance between the revenues and expenditures for the debt service fund. Ken Mishler worked very hard over the years when there was a Fund 49, which is referendum approved debt, where you're able to adjust the amount that you levy over those years and set the money aside in what's called a debt sinking fund. And so what we're able to do this year is we're able to take the money from that debt sinking fund and pay ahead on our debts, which will cause the district will save on interest, which is always good news. And we'll make better progress on our debt outlook, and we'll be able to just take a look at other alternatives for the district moving forward a whole calendar year sooner. So that's really good news and savings for the district. The Capital Projects Fund, Fund 46, that has a current balance of $1.1 million in there. And we have the ability to use that money if we need to. However, we have to have an updated capital improvement plan, which we are having internal discussions about making a document that we would, review annually to be able to mobilize and use those funds for projects that we, have identified. We're definitely not short on things that we need to make improvements on across the district. So then moving ahead to the food service fund, the revenues we do project will be a little higher this year over the expenditures, just because of the USDA funding, and the summer seamless offering is what it's called for the food service program. So as a reminder, we've mentioned this before, that all the students have free breakfast and lunch at all the schools, and it's a very equal and consistent offering across the whole entire district, which is really great for our students. And the last year we had the reimbursement rate is higher in this program, and our expenditures will be a little higher this year over last year, just because they're going back to offering more options for the students. But so overall, we're going to have more revenue coming in because of the higher reimbursement rates. So in total, the gross expenditures, they total around $90 million this year. It's a 13.27 increase. And like I said before, a lot of it is that COVID funding attributes to that. That lends itself a lot to that amount. And when we look at the levy amount, you'll see here that I separated out the non-referendum debt service fund and the general fund there. So this amount here, like the $21 million, is what we levied last year, and then it's projected to go down to $20,145,000 next year, and down for 4.32%. What I was able to find in the last, with updating the enrollment, is that our levy, the mill rate was set to be $7.06 when I put these numbers together. With the updated enrollment, it went up to $7.12. The last piece that we are waiting to get numbers on are both the state aid amount and then the vouchers. So the vouchers, we are able to add to the revenue limit whatever the amount is. And so it doesn't really have a direct impact on the budget other than just expanding that. But then the state aid will be the true final measure of where the mill rate will be. But overall, we were looking at $7.81 last year, and then going down to, in the $7.10, like maybe give or take range. That's really a lot to celebrate that we are able to, pass savings on to our taxpayers through the structure and the additional state aid. So at the bottom of this, what I had included was just, they have a template here where we add some information about programs. There are no discontinued programs, so there's no financial impact there. Synergistic energy savings program. We have that, and that is a savings in energy cost for the school district. That's well underway. We have advance payment of our callable debt. So that's where, with that sinking fund, we weren't able to prepay on it before April 1st. And so that's why you might say, hey, how come we weren't able to pay ahead on that earlier? It's because it's first callable at this time. Then I included Esther Funding in here, the continuation of free meals, the McKinley Virtual Academy. That's been very impactful in our district. I believe we have 11 students that are in our district that came to open enroll in for McKinley. And then several of our students that were open enrolling out are back in our district because of that offering. The increase in open enrollment will increase our expenditure, but we increased our revenue limit because of that. And overall, our use of fund balance is down due to the passing of the operational referendum. So that is a huge piece there. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all. I feel like I just talked a lot, and I did. So I'm going to stop presenting here. So,
Angela, what was the third Friday count? Do you have those figures?
Yes. Well, and the amount that goes on the revenue, the third Friday count itself, let me see here, the actual number of students that we have like in our seats, or the grand total. Mark and I were looking at this. 4746 is the number of what we have like actually in our seats. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mark. And I think he might have had 40, 46, 47. Sometimes that's still fluctuating a little bit. On our revenue limit worksheet, when they take the number of preschool students and also kindergarten students, preschool students count as 0.5. It's weighted, and kindergarten or in 4K counts as 0.6. So the amount that goes into the revenue limit worksheet is 4858. That's what we have right now. And then we have 105 students for summer school, and they use 40% of that for the calculation. So like what the current year average that they use in the revenue limit is 4967. So I don't know if that's more information than you wanted on that one, or.
Well, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
So it's a little tricky because what we report for enrollment isn't exactly the count that we're funded on, because it's the 3-year average and then the weighting of the different grade levels. Mm-hmm.
So where are we from last year?
Last year, when we were looking at the budget for revenues versus expenditures, we were slated to go $2 million into fund balance. So right now we're going in, and with some of my updated totals I had here, let me find this. Let me pull this over here. So with the open, we had some just tweaking around that we needed to do with our salary and benefits budget when we just had to proof it between what was in our system and what was on the spreadsheet. So that's a very typical practice to make sure it all ties out. So there's a little bit of adjusting that needs to be done there to bring it true it up. And then the two largest impacts coming out of the enrollment count from last week is that our enrollment open enrollment out was estimated to be 495 students at the beginning of the school year. It is down to 335 as the official count. So that is a savings of $1 million, so $1,082,000, which is huge. Now we overestimated the open enrollment in revenue by 32,000. So, we end up with, 1,049,420 that we will be able to sort of save within the budget. There's about $400,000 of adjustments on the salaries and benefits. And so overall, we had planned to initially use $1.7 million of fund balance, but we will only be using about $335,000 at this point, which is excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
But and it's very good. We're just waiting to find out with the it's with the vouchers, it's you're aided, or you're not, you're aided, but you expand your revenue limit whatever your voucher rate is. So it's kind of like you expend it and it helps you get aided on it. But that's just one of the only little pieces and that could shape that. The other thing I did want to mention, sorry to keep going on and on about that, is that in the budget, we included what'll be about $620,000 that we estimate that we'll get from the governor has like a per pupil increase of $125,000 that's been talked about, but it's not been guaranteed. And Mark can jump in here too. He had talked about finalizing that after the enrollment counts were in last week. So it's going to be a one-time expenditure. So I guess in totality, what we have to keep in mind when we plan for next year is that we're only slated to go into fund balance about $335,000 now, but we'll be behind about $1 million next year because that will be taken out of the equation. Yeah. So it's just hard because we didn't receive any increase per pupil on the revenue limit. So Mark, any questions from any of you?
Colin has one.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have two. The governor's, he said something about him giving an additional amount. Mm-hmm. Are there any strings that are attached to that additional amount that we would have to meet in order to receive that money, or is it simply there you go?
I think it's more of a there you go. They call it a categorical aid is what they usually do. And what they'll use is that, was it 4967 figure? Is that the number I gave you? That's the number. Yeah, 4967. They'll take that and they'll just add that with our other categorical aid. So it's like $742 per pupil now. And so they'll add $125 to that.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was so the taxes that we can expect to be on next year's taxes are going to be down 4.32%. Is that correct in my assumption there?
Yeah, it's down. Yes. And the final figure will come when we have the aid, right now. Okay. I'm not losing my sheet here that I have it on. Of course, here when I need this.
Colin, as she's looking at that, one thing that I would articulate, so we're looking at probably a 70-cent reduction in our tax levy. Mm-hmm.
That's still
which
good.
is going to be likely the historical low. Like we won't find in decades how low our levy is going to be. Mm-hmm. So when we see the 4-point-something% reduction, that reduction is how much we are asking our taxpayers to pay. That makes sense. Okay. Sure. So, in all scope of things, $20 million today based on inflation is different than $20 million 2 years ago. Right. Okay. And your home property values also have an effect, obviously, on the amount of money that we need to raise, because the more your property value goes up, the lower the levy goes. Mm-hmm. So with that, if we have a 70-cent reduction and our levy is $7, that would be a 10% reduction to the levy, because there's lots of factors in that. So the 4.3% is yes, but if I was paying, there's all kinds of different models. We'll create some models that will show you how much less that will be and on homeowners' property values, it will be significant. If we were to say we want to raise our levy 70 cents, we would lose the referendum so fast it wouldn't even be close. We were asking at, I think, for the greatest amount, and Lisa was here at that time, I think it was 21 cents. And even that we were skeptical on, right? And that added $4.3 million. So I don't know what exactly this is going to mean. We'll wait till we get the final numbers and then we'll share that out. But it's going to be historically low. Like, we won't find a $7.15, 12, whatever that number is, and maybe in the 90s or 80s. Like, that's how low it's going to be, just historically. But I would say the reason it's historically low is because the school district is getting no new money. All the money that the government is giving to reducing the levy, not to school districts expending that. So we have no new dollars to spend. Absent a referendum, we'd be in big trouble. And so here we are in a biennium budget. A year from now, when Angela's giving you the budget, we're going to have no new money. There's no new money coming in. Hence the governor saying, I have $100 million, 110. I'm going to give the public schools some money because they have no new money. Now, again, it's one-time money, not helping us next year. But we're going to have some real difficult, because, one of the conversations we're going to move forward is, I think the qualified economic offer this year was, 1.21% or something like that. It's trending in the 4s and 5s. Well, I'll say here right now, if we have no new money, do you know how hard it would be to give our employees a 5% raise? But we've never, since that's been out, not at least given them the minimum, that was. But we don't have any new money. So, every expense that moves forward from 2021 or 2022 and beyond is unfunded. Every expense. So if we give anybody any new money, any increase to our utilities, transportation, whatever. So this is kind of a unique year, but the future does not set us in a great model. So we'll ask our legislators for tax repair bills so they can fix it, but I'm not confident that's going to happen. So we have some fiscal challenges moving ahead.
So I just to go back on that, then, are we setting ourselves up for possible failure in the future? Yes. Then
absolutely, but there's nothing we can do about it. We can't change the levy. We can't say, well, we're only going to reduce it by this amount, because, in all honesty, people are going to forget the years where it was $8.30. They'll never remember that. All they're going to remember is it's $7.12. That's where I want it to be. Yes, it is not. It's, again, I try to help our legislators understand it's great to give our taxpayers back some money, but to the tune where you're going to have this historically low and anything moving forward is going to be an increase. They will forget this 70% reduction and say, nope, don't want that. And we'll say, we have no money. Like, we have no new money. All the money was given to you. Can we have some back? I don't know the answer to that. If I knew that answer, I would have said we would have asked for what we needed for the referendum in April, which we were worried about asking for too much. When we went to that, we said, well, this is what we think we can get. And so we're okay for this year. Angela's done a great job explaining, like, we're not taking much out of fund balance. We've got fun. But as we look at what happens projecting forward, we have 2 years of no new funding. And I don't know how you run a business saying we're not going to have any new increases. You just can't. And we're a big machine. So we're going to have to be really thoughtful about how we spend our money for the future.
Well, I guess going back to that, so if you're having a tax decrease, and I'm a very fiscal conservative. You have a tax decrease here. You have a storm brewing. Why in the world would we be doing that decrease if it's 70 cents? Why wouldn't we fix some things now so that we don't have to fix them later and we're not going to have money?
One of the things that we, as a tool that many districts use, Colin, and we just don't have it available to us right now because of where our debt is that we, like districts that use like Fund 49 for their debt, if they have referendum approved debt, for example, or like a cap or a community service fund, are able to like say, okay, we're going to increase our levy and collect more and set it aside. So that's what was done in the past, and that's why we're able to make progress on our debt now, which is wonderful. I mean, I see that, and every business manager thinks, oh my gosh, that's the, if you can adjust that, but we don't have any ability to adjust our levy to make up for those fluctuations like other districts have at times. So that's, as we consider projects and how we move forward with things, that's a very important consideration, because when you can adjust for those things, it's huge, and you can help yourself in the future and the current time. And we don't have any tools available to us right now with where we're structured.
So Colin, and board members, here's what I would tell you. Let me interject here. Yeah. We met with a gentleman from Baird who is an expert in public school finance.
Yeah.
He did not know of any districts who are debt-free. Mm-hmm. He did not know of any, right?
Yeah.
So we have done our job in this district. We're fiscally responsible. We're going to be debt-free. And all of those things, we've been low spending. All of those things, in the end, come back to bite us. We could just go back and borrow money. Now, I'm trying to remember what percent we could borrow, but I want to say, Angela, was it
4%?
And not ask any questions. We could just go borrow money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's a good plan, right? You're going to borrow money, so you're levied. We're trying to get out of debt, let alone get in debt, right?
I agree. Yep.
And so we get into this spot where the way public school financing works does not work for everybody. It works for some. Mm-hmm. And if you have extended money, like we have been, if we had been a high spending district, we'd continue to have those resources come in. Because we're not, because we're paying off our debt, because we don't have a Fund 80, we don't have ways to mitigate, to just say we're going to reduce the levy or increase the levy. We don't have that authority. So when the levy projection comes out, we don't get to say, well, we can say we're not going to levy to the max. We could say that, and in our history, we've done that very rarely. But we can't say we're going to levy more. We can't do that. Mm-hmm. And that lies some of the struggles. If that was the case, back when we said $8.21 and the public said yes, and our levy went down to $8, we would have said it stays at $8.21. Now we said $7.81, and they said yes, and now it's going to go down to $7.15 or something like that. That we can't do it. We can't just take the money. I wish we could.
Well, I guess that's not what I'm saying. You said that there are districts that are saying that they have the ability to move that money into, I guess it's maybe like a rainy day fund. It sounds like. Mm-hmm. Why don't we have that type of fund?
We don't have debt.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have the debt in order to have the rainy day fund?
Yes.
And so Colin, what Mark and I have done with meeting with Baird is try to look at, like, when that debt service falls off, we have options where we could find other things suspended on, or we could borrow more money to create, to renew sort of the debt service portion of our budget. So, and looking and having a Fund 49 where in having referendum approved debt is, gives you more of those options. So it seems counterintuitive where you're going to referendum and then you're able to have more flexibility, but it's a separate levy. And that's really the key thing. Like, our main levy is always what's in that 1041 and 38. And we don't use Fund 41 just because of we're positively aided. So.
Mark, whose audience do we really need to get them to understand the position that we're in? By being fiscally responsible, we're almost like, for lack of a better term, screwing ourselves, right?
Stymied. How about that?
Yeah, we're stymied. That's much better. Thank you. Yeah, but like, who do we talk to? I mean, we say our
Representative
legislators.
Tittle is our local representative, and then I would say our Senator Lemahieu is our senator. I don't know that Shea Sortwell has a tiny bit of Manitowoc Public School District. They're more Mishicot and North.
Warpog will be south, wouldn't he?
Is he south?
Yeah.
No. I think he's Mishicot and North, and then
well, that's Sortwell. Shortwell's Mishicot and North, but Warpog would be south of us.
yes. Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking of him. Anyway, I think they're people, like, I speak to them on a monthly basis, but I think at times they just go like this because they know what I'm going to say every time. And we're not the only district. Like, this Velders would be a similar low spending school district. Two Rivers would be a low spending school district. This region, Green Bay, is in that area. Howard Schwamico is in that area. The difference being is some districts look at it differently. Like, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, Howard Schwamico passed significant referendum dollars to pay their teachers.
Oh.
And reduce class sizes. I'm not sure that would fly here. Maybe it would, but I mean, that would be really, really hard referendum to pass. They were just in a different mode. They felt like, yes, in order for us to be competitive and continue, we're going to pass a $54 million referendum. And that paid for 5 years for staffing and other pieces. They went back this year and extended that referendum 5 more years before it was even up this past spring. So some of it depends on the communities. In my opinion, that's the fundamental problem with public school financing, is that school districts who can pass referendums, I'll say Manitowoc now having passed 3, are in at least reasonably good spots. If we don't pass that referendum and we have no new money, you can imagine what our cuts would be. We'd be spending all of our board meetings, much of them, talking about reductions to staff because we would have to cut and we wouldn't have any money. So I think the message could be twofold. One, communicate. I can send you I could draft something for the board if you want and say, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. Our levy is going down and we don't have any new money. Please consider doing something for school districts who have been low spending. Like, that's the message we send. And what they'll say is, well, we're just going to do the same for everybody. Right. And yeah, I get it, but it doesn't help everybody the same. Right. That's the challenge.
Right.
Colin?
So we're aware of being aware of our situation is how we can take care of our situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can only control certain elements of our situation. In the instance that we need to say, in other discussions we've had, say the Building and Grounds Committee, when we were talking about the gym, say we need to figure out a solution to that because it becomes a dangerous situation. What is our course of action then? Is our course of action then going to be debt and taking on that debt, or is it going to be, I guess, what is the way the ship is going to go?
I'll add a little bit here, and then please feel free to tag onto that. We always have the ability, in the case of an unexpected expenditure, to use fund balance, through board approval. That's always a tool we have, but we want to use that very sparingly because we have to control the percentage of fund balance that we have. And sometimes, like, cash balance and fund balance, like what's in the bank now if I log in versus what's, what's called our fund balance, what we refer to as a percentage, are two different things. So, and people get that often confused. And we want to maintain a high enough fund balance so that we can survive through and meet our payroll and expenditure and pay bills through the low low cash points of the year. So like in December, November, December is always really low. In June is incredibly low when we make the final payments to for the summer. And so we're not without options. We're not forced to borrow necessarily, but it's just one of those things where each choice has a certain kind of repercussion that comes along with it.
I think there are basically two fundamental ways for districts to maintain, maybe three, capital improvement projects. One is you use your budget and you have a process, and if you're on buildings and grounds, Chris will share with you the process of what we're trying to accomplish on a annual basis. The second would be that you put a number of projects together and go to referendum, and you share that with the community, and you ask the community to pay for building repairs, or in some school districts, like we need a new school or something to that extent. So that's the second one. And the third one is that the state funds your school so that you can annually anticipate X dollars, of which we're going to give percentage of that to your capital improvement plan, of which then you use that. I guess then probably the third option, maybe the fourth then, would be the board could choose to borrow money to fulfill that role without asking the public. And in all of those, there's some philosophical undertones, right? One, if we ask the public to fix something, I just say this generally, and they say no, are we not going to fix it? Like if we say we need to fix and they say no, they're not really, my opinion would be, they're not saying no to fixing it. They're saying no, we're not going to pay for it. So then the question is, does the board then say, well, we're just going to borrow the money and then levy that to you? Right? That's a tough sell, right? We just get to say, and you don't get to anything out. Or what we've done, which is generally the safest side, is we try to earmark dollars in each budget, some years more, some years less, and try to fix what we need. And that's where we've been. But and every district's different. I would tell you that the newest building we have in a Manitowoc Public School District is built in 1991. Prior to that, it's in the 50s. So we have a lot of aging buildings that need upkeep. There's nothing wrong with them necessarily. They just need more upkeeping than maybe a 2010 building. So that in of itself just provides some challenges for us, and we'll continue to have the conversation. Today's role was preliminary budget, which I think in general is just lots of positive news. When I think of the things that our board's been talking about, open enrollment in and out is a big thing. And for us to see that come back is great. We have 100 and something new kids in our virtual model, 160 new kids in our virtual model. That's a great model. And if I looked at where we were last year at this time compared to where we are this time, in terms of just butts and seats, we're significantly increased. I think we're up over 70 plus. And when I think of that, remember our graduating class, we're leaving every year 350 to 400 kids. And our 4K is generally 250 to 300. So there's always going to be a gap until that graduating class gets down in the 300 range. So that this year's enrollment has been a success, significant, to the tune that we've turned the page, and I think we're heading in the right direction. The challenge, again, as Angela shared in her document, is there's a hold harmless number there that helps districts to not lose all the money at one time. And you only get that when you lose enrollment. So when you gain back your enrollment, you lose the money you got from hold harmless, which really means you lose money. Like you lose if you gain, and you lose and you don't. It's just, that's why I say school financing is so complicated that it makes no sense. We got more kids, but we didn't get as much aid because we lost the hold harmless. Eventually, you don't want the hold harmless. You want to just keep being on an increasing enrollment, and there's places for us to do that. But our model will show there are less kids being born in Manitowoc. We're going to have a lower enrollment historically. So. Take it away, Angela. I'm done talking.
Yep. No, you're good. That was excellent. Thank you. So, yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, are there any other questions on that before we move on to the next piece? Colin's good. Okay, everyone's good. Okay, I'm going to put this in. I know there were some questions with Esther and Gear funding, and I'm going to put just a link, and there will be more to come on this. Mark and I have already been having discussions on this, but it's a little a slideshow about information about Gears. It gives a really good overview of just Esther in general. And, with ESSER 3, there's some community engagement pieces that we can look forward to. Like I said, Mark and I are in the process of starting to plan for that. But it really talks about all of the ESSER 1, GEAR, and ESSER 2 and 3 funding. So, I know one of the points in there in the community engagement, Colin, you had asked me to address whether we do have to say to the extent that we're meeting CDC guidelines, but there are no direct strings attached, whether we, based on if school districts, because so many districts are doing different things, there's no like, you only get this much funding if you're doing this or anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure to answer your question.
Yeah. Can I go to that one real quick? Because
it's a big long PowerPoint in here, and that it just
okay. So there is a PowerPoint to that as to whether or not what guidelines we'd have to have for those monies.
Well, and there's guidelines for monies for ESSER funding that was just published through DPI last year that we're following with our initial planning. But part of the problem, or part of the planning, we're obligated to earmark a certain amount towards reducing the achievement gap. So we've been working and making, as a director team and with Mark, working on that. But then also there are just, we have to make a formal plan as a district. So we have to start that all districts. The PowerPoint that you're seeing here was one that I received at a conference at the beginning of September. And it just outlines a plan that all districts are going to have to put together. So we will hear more about that, and we'll be working to assemble that and get community input. And so we can have to put some of it into action just to me working on closing the achievement gap. So
okay. All right.
I just thought you guys would find that interesting. So
Thank
I put that in there. And Mark, I don't know if you want to speak to that anymore.
I'm done talking, remember?
Okay, you are. Okay. Last thing I wanted to address is year-end fund balance designation, and I'll be working to finalize some things with the auditor in the next day or two. But 3 large things that will be very impactful in our district that are going to be assigned within our fund balance for how we'll use it this next year is payment for the movement to Skyward, a new financial and HR system. And I can, for Friday, I guess what I want to do is have it more or less be kind of a package deal, or we can take it separate. I don't know if we have, a thought on how to address it, but, Skyward is a purchase that's over $100,000. So that does need to be formally and separately approved by the board. And then there are 2 other purchases that are smaller in range, but also on the technology implementation. One is Seeds. It's a program for special education for writing and maintaining IEPs. And then for Infinite Campus to go to a registration system that's all online. Right now, as a parent, for example, I have to update all my students or my kids' like health information and contact information by paper. And we would be able to move to a system where parents would be able to do that all online. So, the price tags on those, I think it's $20,000 for the Seeds and then $10,000 for the Infinite Campus roughly. So, I'll bring that to Friday's meeting along with the budget. That'll, just be along with how we're going to assign the fund balance all wrapped in one, but I'll include the information for those as well. So the major improvements and really a positive direction. And one of the, I think like when I talk to Sue Schnorr, who's my mentor as a business manager, she'll talk, about like something like Skyward, that's a huge purchase, a one-time thing. That is a good reason to use your fund balance. It's just, you want to always avoid using it for regular operational type things. So this is a good thing for our district. So that's all I've got.
So Angela, when you talked about needing our approval on Friday and whether to take them as a whole or separately, I guess my thought would be taking them separately, because you're talking about, are you talking about like including it into the full budget then? If you took it as whole?
They're worked into the budget now. They're included into the expenditures. So we could look at it, I mean, as, you know, and however you guys are comfortable handling it, I'm fine. You know, it is worked into the expenditures and revenues in general, but we can go through and formally approve them. We should with Skyward for sure, just because it's its own separate thing. Or I mean, because it meets that threshold. So that's that one for sure. And then you could approve it as a part of the whole fund balance designation too. So I don't know if Mark, you have a recommendation on that.
I think when you look at it, you can decide. You know, the Skyward one's 100,000 something. I don't remember what it was. The other two are, you know, like a 30 and 10. So you could either say I approve these designations for fund balance, and Angela will have a better a visual for you to look at. Yeah. Or you could say, almost like a personnel committee, I want to take this one, or, you know, and then this one and this one too. If that makes sense. So you could do 3 motions and approvals,
right?
I think, or 1 or 2. I mean, it's really up to the board how maybe it's 1 is the Skyward and the other 2 are rolled in together. I mean, either way, but we do need approval for a fund balance designation.
And we have to approve it on Friday to move toward the greater board, right?
That's what we're asking for. We never had to tell you have to do anything.
Yeah. But Colin and Lisa, do you guys have any thoughts on that? How you'd like to see it happen?
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever is the easiest process to do.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's anyone has any thoughts about issues personally, you know, that we'd be better off just doing it in one full swing. Colin, what do you think? Can't hear you. You don't have your voice thing on.
That's a fine.
I would say, I mean, doing them separate, fine, sure, no big deal. If we put them, you know, this way, then there's just a clear path, you know, an open discussion.
Right.
Separate, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Whatever you think is best. I mean, you got the whole group here.
If you guys want to do it together, I mean, I'll just voice my view on the Skyward thing. I mean, I'm okay with the Skyward thing. I understand the need for it to, you know, we do software updates, and, you know, in my workforce all the time. I understand that they're costly, but I also understand that they're necessary. So, you know, I'm on board with it. So I don't have any real objection to it, but I can also understand the fact of, you know, having them as 2 separate motions, you know, and just for the fact of addressing it addressing it. So.
Okay. It sounds like either way you want to put it, but maybe it would be more clear if we did it separately, but however you guys feel like it's best is good. I think they're not getting any objections so far. So.
Yep. No, let's take them separately. Then you can all feel comfortable and like we've addressed them, and then there's no question. And what I'll do is I have the proposals for all of them that I can include, you know, for you to review and be able to see what all comes with that. So that I just would like you guys to be able to view that. So
yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So I think that's all I have, unless there are any other questions you guys have.
Nothing else. All right. I will take a motion to adjourn unless someone else has something to add.
I'll make a motion.
All right.
Second the motion then.
All right. We are adjourned. Thanks, you guys.
Right.
And I guess we'll see you on Friday.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.